Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video. Have you ever felt something so specific, so real, and yet you had no word for it, no clear way to explain it, so you just let it sit there quietly inside you without ever fully understanding what it was trying to tell you? Not a simple emotion like happiness or sadness, but something more complex, like a strange mix of longing, confusion, and awareness that shows up for a moment and then disappears before you can even describe it properly. Because there are feelings that exist in your life that language has not fully caught up to yet. And when you experience them, it can feel like your mind is trying to explain something important without having the right tools to do it. And what makes this even more interesting is that these feelings are not rare at all. They happen to almost everyone, but most people just move past them without realizing that what they felt actually has a deeper meaning behind it. So in this video, we are going to slow down and look at some of these feelings closely, not in a complicated or technical way, but in a simple and clear way that helps you recognize them the next time they appear in your life. Because once you can name a feeling, it becomes less confusing, less overwhelming, and a little easier to understand. Number 1, the Sonder. The realization that everyone has a life as complex as yours. There is a moment that happens quietly, often when you are surrounded by people, where you suddenly realize that every single person you pass has a life just as detailed, just as complicated, and just as real as your own. You see someone walking past you, and for a brief second, it becomes clear that they have memories, struggles, relationships, fears, and thoughts that you will never fully know, even though they exist just as vividly as yours do. This feeling is called Sonder, and it carries a strange mix of connection and distance, because it makes you feel part of something larger, while also reminding you how separate individual lives truly are. And what makes Sonder powerful is that it shifts your perspective, making you realize that the world is not centered around your own experience, but is instead made up of millions of parallel realities happening at the same time. Number 2, the Hiraeth. The longing for a place that feels like home, even if it never existed. There is a feeling that feels like homesickness, but not for any place you can point to on a map, not for a house you lived in, and not even for a specific time in your life. It is a kind of longing for something that feels familiar yet distant, something that feels like it belongs to you, even though you cannot clearly define what it is or where it comes from. This feeling is known as Hiraeth, and it often appears during moments of reflection, when you feel a quiet pull towards something that feels like home, even if you have never actually experienced it. And what makes Hiraeth so powerful is that it connects you to a deeper sense of belonging, one that is not tied to a specific location, but to an emotional state that feels meaningful and grounding. Number 3, the Limerence. The intense emotional pull toward someone. There is a kind of feeling that goes beyond simple attraction, beyond liking someone or enjoying their presence, and becomes something much more consuming and difficult to ignore. It is the feeling where your thoughts keep returning to one person, where small interactions feel significant, and where your mind begins to create meaning and possibility around every detail. This feeling is called limerence, and it is driven by a combination of emotional intensity, uncertainty, and the desire for connection, which together create a powerful psychological experience. And while it can feel exciting and deeply engaging, it can also feel overwhelming, because it occupies your attention in a way that is difficult to control or fully understand. Number 4, the Kenopsia. The strange atmosphere of an empty place. There are moments when you enter a place that is usually full of life, like a school, a street, or a building, and find it completely empty, creating a feeling that is both calm and unsettling at the same time. The silence feels heavier than expected. The absence of movement becomes noticeable, and the space itself seems to carry a different kind of energy than it does when it is filled with people. This feeling is known as Kenopsia, and it comes from the contrast between what a place usually is and what it feels like when that usual presence is gone. And this feeling often lingers because it highlights how much meaning we attach to presence, movement, and interaction, even in places we do not consciously think about. Number 5. The Anemoia. Nostalgia for a time you never experienced. There is a feeling that resembles nostalgia, but instead of being tied to your own memories, it is connected to a time or place that you have never actually lived through. You might feel drawn to a certain era, a certain aesthetic, or a certain way of life that exists outside your own experience, yet feels strangely familiar and meaningful. This feeling is known as anemoia, and it reflects the mind's ability to imagine and connect with experiences beyond direct memory. And while it may seem unusual, it reveals how the mind can form emotional connections not just to what has happened, but to what feels meaningful even in imagination. Number 6. The Occhiolism. The awareness of how limited your perspective is. There is a moment when you realize that your understanding of the world is incredibly small compared to everything that exists beyond your experience, creating a feeling that is both humbling and overwhelming. You become aware that you can only see life through your own perspective, your own memories, and your own understanding, while countless other perspectives exist beyond your reach. This feeling is called Occhiolism, and it highlights the limits of perception, reminding you that your view of reality is only one small part of a much larger whole. And in that awareness, there is a quiet shift where certainty becomes less important than curiosity, and understanding becomes an ongoing process rather than a fixed conclusion. The feelings you cannot name are not signs of confusion, but signs of depth, reflections of an inner world that is more complex than the language used to describe it. They exist because human experience is not limited to simple categories, but shaped by memory, perception, imagination, and the countless ways the mind interprets reality. And while naming these feelings can bring a sense of clarity, the absence of a name does not make them less real or less meaningful. Because sometimes the most important parts of your experience are the ones that cannot be easily explained, the ones that exist quietly, shaping how you see the world without needing to be fully understood. And maybe that is not something to fix or define completely, but something to notice, to feel, and to recognize as part of the depth that makes your experience uniquely your own. And if some of these feelings felt a little too familiar, like they were quietly describing parts of your life you never had words for before, then there's something you should see next, because sometimes understanding your emotions is only the first step, but learning how to keep going when everything feels heavy is a completely different journey. There's a video where this is explored in a much deeper and more personal way, a message written for anyone who feels lost, tired, or close to giving up, even if they haven't said it out loud yet. So if you've ever had a moment where life felt like too much, or wondered how to keep moving forward when hope feels distant, watch that video next. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you there.